Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. To carry on with the general embryology lectures, I'm gonna cover in this presentation the development of the placenta. I'm Dr. Dalia Saleh, Professor and Head of the Anatomy Department at Mansoura University, Egypt. The objectives of my presentation would be, first I'm gonna talk about placentation, the placental barrier, the shape of the full term placenta, its function, and its anomalies. Let me remind you first by some events that took place early on during pregnancy. This is the blastocyst. You can see the zona pellucida. Inside it lies the blastula or blastocyst. It's formed of two layers, outer cell layer and inner cell mass. And you can see a cavity there. It is called blastocele. After hatching and degeneration of the zona pellucida, the blastocyst comes into contact with the endometrial lining of the uterus at the site of implantation, and the outer cell layer differentiates into two distinct layers: outer syncytial trophoblastic layer and the inner cytotrophoblastic layer. The syncytial trophoblastic layer proliferate and sends finger-like projections and erode the endometrium, and then the blastula will migrate inside the endometrial lining of the uterus for its implantation. In the same time, you can see that the inner cell mass now differentiates into bilaminar germ layer. Here you can also see the blood vessels of the endometrium and also the endometrial glands. Then the blastocyst migrates more and more deep into the endometrium, and the entry site is covered by what is called fibrin plug. Also, you can see that the syncytial trophoblast comes into contact with the endometrial blood vessels and also with the endometrial glands, and they will erode these structures. Then lacunae or cavities will appear between the cells of the syncytial trophoblast. These lacunae will be filled with maternal blood from the eroded endometrial capillaries and also from secretions from the endometrial glands. And this will provide nutrition for the developing embryo at this early stage. At the same time, you can see that the inner cell mass now differentiates into bilaminar germ layer, epiblast and hypoblast, and we also have two cavities here, amniotic cavity and yolk sac cavity, and another tissue appears outside the embryo between the amniotic sac and the yolk sac and the cytotrophoblast. It is called the extraembryonic mesoderm. Inside the extraembryonic mesoderm, a cavity develops. It is called the extraembryonic coelom or chorionic cavity. The extraembryonic cavity enlarges, and we can notice that the cytotrophoblastic layer begins to send finger-like projections into the syncytial trophoblast. These projections will form what is called chorionic villi. So if we take this area and enlarge it to see how the chorionic villi develop, let's see it in this picture. This is the syncytial trophoblast. This is the cytotrophoblastic layer, and this is the extraembryonic mesoderm. So when the cytotrophoblastic layer sends finger-like projections into the syncytial trophoblast, this is the appearance of what is called a primary chorionic villi. Then, when the extraembryonic mesoderm invade these finger-like projections, now the secondary chorionic villi are formed. When blood vessels are formed inside this extra embryonic mesoderm and invade the core of the chorionic villi. Now the tertiary chorionic villi are formed. So here is the tertiary chorionic villi. You can see it is formed of an outer covering of syncytial trophoblast, then a layer of cytotrophoblast, then a core of extra embryonic mesoderm containing the blood vessels. You can also notice that the cytotrophoblastic layer sends column of cells that will make a shell. It's called cytotrophoblastic shell, which lies close to the endometrial lining of the uterus. Here we can see inside the endometrial lining of the uterus, and this area will be the decidua bizalis. We can see the endometrial capillaries or blood vessels that are eroded and fill the gaps between the chorionic villi. This is called the intervillous spaces. Let's go back to the chorionic villi. These chorionic villi at the embryonic pool will grow and form chorion frondosum that faces the uterine wall, while chorionic villi at the ape-embryonic pool or away from the embryo will degenerate and form what's called chorion leaf, and this part of the chorion will bulge into the uterine cavity. Remember that the endometrial lining of the pregnant uterus is called the decidua. So the part of the decidua that comes into contact with the chorion frondosum, we call it the decidua bizalis, while the decidua that covers the embryo or the gestational sac, we call it the decidua capsularis, while the decidua that lies the rest of the uterine cavity, we call it the decidua parietalis. So, with further development and enlargement of the gestational sac, the decidua capsularis will overstretch and degenerate, and finally the chorion leaf will come into contact with the decidua parietalis, leading to obliteration of the uterine cavity. Placenta is made of the following: fetal portion made by the chorion frondosum, and a maternal portion is made by the decidua bizalis. The fetal side is limited by the chorionic plate. The maternal side is limited by a plate called the decidual plate, which forms septa. These septa will divide the placenta into pieces. We call it cotyledons. The spaces between the septa, we call it the intervillous spaces, and these intervillous spaces will communicate with each other below these septa. So what is meant by placental barrier? It is the membrane that lies between the fetal and maternal blood. Remember that there is no mix of blood between the mother and the fetus. So this membrane or barrier is formed of the following: the endothelial lining of the villus capillaris, the mesodermal core which lies inside the tertiary villi, the cytotrophoblastic layer, and the syncytial trophoblastic layer. With further development and the maturation of the placenta, the cytotrophoblastic layer will disappear, and with further maturation, the mesodermal core of the villi will also disappear. So the placental barrier now at the full-term placenta is formed by the endothelial lining of the villus capillaris and the syncytial trophoblast. So what is the structure of the full-term placenta? It is rounded in shape and disc-like. That's why in Greek it is called the plakos or flat cake. It's about 15 to 20 centimeter in diameter. 2 to 3 centimeter in thickness, nearly half kilogram in weight, and has two surfaces, a maternal surface and a fetal surface. This is the maternal surface. It has a cobblestone appearance because of the shape of the cotyledons that are separated from each other by grooves, while this is the fetal surface of the placenta. It is smooth and shiny, covered with amnion, and you can see the umbilical cord attached to its center. Also, you can see the umbilical vessels and the chorionic vessels clearly seen under this thin amniotic membrane. For the fetal circulation, we can see here the maternal side, or the decidua physalis, containing the maternal vessels, and we can see here the intervillous spaces containing the tertiary chorionic villi, and inside it lies the fetal blood vessels. So blood come in the maternal arteries and fill the intervillous spaces. If we enlarge it, oxygen will move or pass in this thin placental barrier from the area of high concentration to the area of low concentration, meaning that from the mother to the fetus. And the carbon dioxide will move back from the fetus to the mother. The non-oxygenated blood or less oxygenated blood will be picked up by the maternal vein back to the mother circulation. Remember that no mix of blood between the mother and the fetus. So what are the functions of the placenta? The placenta acts as a tool or a mean for exchange of material between the mother and the fetus. It acts like a defense barrier. It produces hormones like human chorionic gonadotrophin, progesterone, and estrogen. To summarize the anomalies of the placenta, we have the following. Either in the position of the placenta, we have either placenta previa or placenta percreta. Anomalies regarding the attachment of the umbilical cord to the placenta, we have eccentric or marginal attachment. Anomalies concerning the shape of the placenta, we have many varieties of it, like zonary, pilooped, trilooped, irregular, and membranous. And anomalies regarding its number, we have what's called placenta saxentoriata. To start with the position, the placenta previa, it is when the implantation occurs but in the lower segment of the uterus. So the placenta develops over and covers the internal os of the cervix, either partially or completely. So we have here the placenta previa lateralis or marginalis when it slightly covers the internal os, or centralis when it is completely covers the internal os of the cervix. For placenta percreta, here the placenta penetrate deep inside the myometrium. This is the normal attachment of the placenta to the uterus, but here the placenta percreta penetrate the myometrium of the uterus, and this is of course has many complications. For the anomalies regarding the attachment of the umbilical cord to the placenta, this is the normal attachment in the fetal surface towards the center, but sometimes there is eccentric umbilical cord attachment when it is not exactly at the center of the placenta, or even marginal attachment when it lies at the margin of the placenta. For the shape, we have many varieties like zonary placenta, which looks like a donut, It looks like a circle with empty center, pi-looped, divided into 2 loops. Regarding the number, we have like placenta saxintoriata. You can see that you have a full or whole placenta and another additional part. Of course, this may lead to complication during delivery if this part or added part is left behind. This is the end of my presentation. Thanks for listening, and if you like it, please do not forget to subscribe, like, and share.